Blasey Ford testified she was sexually assaulted by Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh when they were both in high school. Kavanaugh strongly denied the claim. Much of yesterday's hearing focused on the time when they were teenagers, so we decided to assemble a panel of current Chicago area high school students. They shared their thoughts with Adriana Diaz, not only on the allegations, but the relevance of these hearings for young people today.
Have you guys been paying attention to the Brett Kavanaugh story?
I've been following the reports on the news and reading some articles about it.
What do you think about it? What stands out to you?
I think it's the position of power that we're trying to put him in. It's kind of scary to see someone who has such serious allegations be up for a position like this.
Is it scary to be in high school knowing that something you do now
can affect you in 30, 40 years? Absolutely.
Well, I think that's part of what's so good about this coming up is that people should be scared that their actions do have consequences.
Do you think it's fair to expect teenagers to know right from wrong when it comes to sexual harassment and assault?
I think it's very fair. I think even as children, as a 5-year-old, we have this human intuition where we know right from wrong. I think sexual harassment is like human intuition. You know that it's wrong to assault someone. I think kids in high school maybe don't know whether it's wrong or not to get drunk or to do that kind of stuff, but to physically harass a person, we've been taught forever that it's wrong.
Does a culture of objectifying girls and women still exist today in high school?
Nothing has changed. I was even reading some of the articles from 30 plus years ago, and I definitely think it's still the same. I think that the way boys are supposed to act is to pursue girls regardless of how they respond. I think that's a very toxic part of our culture that persists today.
What do you make of the whole notion that boys will be boys?
I think it's a childish excuse for something you very well know that you were doing at one point or another. At one point or another, he knows he was drinking. He knows he was getting drunk.
I also think that, to a certain point, I think that it's, boys will be boys, girls will be girls. It can be said about anyone, but I think it's really important that, and people make mistakes, and I think it's important for them to, reflect on their mistakes and, no, that was a really stupid thing I did. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have gotten drunk that night. I shouldn't have done this to that girl or whatever.
You just mentioned drinking. Is alcohol abused at parties by your peers? Maya, you're shaking your head and you're 15.
I mean, definitely. I don't think that has changed either. Just, there's new things, there's new drugs, new stuff like that. But I think just abusing something that's not meant to be abused is a definite high school thing. It's
people will go outside of their comfort zone to be accepted because especially in high school, there's kind of a need for acceptance among people. You have to have somewhere to fit in, somewhere to be, somewhere to exist, where you feel comfortable, even if you have to start by making yourself uncomfortable.
Do you think young men are more likely to be targeted or be assumed guilty rather than assumed innocent?
I can't speak from personal experience, but just looking at it from an outside perspective, absolutely.
I think with something that's as heavy as sexual assault, instead of it being innocent until proven guilty, it's more of a young men start guilty until proven innocent. I feel we shouldn't start with the mentality that they are guilty.
Raise your hand if you know someone who's been sexually harassed or assaulted by a peer. Do you want to describe whatever you want? You don't have to.
I mean, it happens at parties. Definitely. Yeah. And it's serious. It's very serious. It's something that makes, that as a 15-year-old, you don't know how to help your friend, you don't know what to do, and you kind of feel at a loss where how could I let this happen? I wasn't even there, but how could this happen to someone that I know and to me next? You don't know.
I also think that there are some situations where it does get really serious, but there are just some times when a guy comes out of the room and high fives all his friends, and it's something that just I don't know, that I distinctly remember and of being oh, that's just kind of weird.
And you're saying you may not know what happened behind closed doors?
Yeah, but just the fact that he comes out and that's his initial response, and the girl didn't come out with him, like was still in the room, like didn't see it happening.
But he comes out looking for props.
Yeah.
Have you or anyone you know had to help someone get help or help them report what happened? Was that hard for you or the person you were helping?
It was definitely hard for the person I was helping, just because there's so much pressure to not be like the girl who like ruins his life. My friend has actually not reported it, and she does not want to either. And I think it's because of exactly what you're describing. You don't want to be the person to ruin his life, or you don't want anyone to know, because it's so embarrassing to imagine yourself so small. And I think, yeah, tying into the Brett Kavanaugh case, I think that I was just imagining maybe 30 years she'll say something about it. And the fact that it should take that long is just, yeah, it's just kind of sad.
I really appreciate their candor and their poise at such a young age. It just shows you how little, in some cases, things have changed.
Yeah.
There has to be conversations with boys, with our sons and our daughters about this topic.
Right, and on the one hand, you're a bit more optimistic because they know what to look out for,
That's
and
right.
yet it still happens, and they don't want to hurt the boy or the girl, you know, short term. Long term, we know what the implications are too, though.
Yeah, they really, but the fact that they were able to speak out it with such clarity, though, gives me some hope.
Yep, it's a very important conversation.